Panic seizes Galaxy Council as humans refuse to parley. The emergency beacon shrieked through the council chamber as Ambassador Velrix collapsed against the curved table. His breathing apparatus wheezed, purple blood seeping from stress fractures along his carapace. Around him, representatives from 47 species descended into chaos. The holographic display flickered, showing the same impossible message for the third time in 6 hours. A human fleet approaching. Communications refused. All diplomatic channels severed. Chancellor Morvith slammed 3 of her appendages against the resonance plate, demanding silence. A metallic clang echoed through the vast chamber, but the panic continued. Species that had survived millennia through careful negotiation now faced something their databases had no protocol for. Humanity had gone dark. 3 months ago, the Council had issued what they considered a reasonable demand. Humanity would reduce its colonial expansion by 40%, surrender mining rights in the tertiary sector, and submit to mandatory genetic auditing. Standard procedure for emerging species. Every civilization accepted these terms eventually. Some protested initially, but they all came to the negotiating table. Except humans. The first response had been silence. Council members assumed the message needed translation refinement. Then came the second silence, more deliberate. When the third diplomatic envoy vanished without trace near human space, Admiral Kyle Brennan sent a single word response. No, not a negotiation, not a counteroffer. Just refusal. Morvith pulled up the tactical display with trembling digits. 17 human vessels had crossed into Council-protected space. Every attempt at communication met the same result. Dead channels, empty frequencies. The humans were not jamming signals. They simply were not listening. Velrix finally regained composure enough to speak. His translator clicked and buzzed. Morvith had studied human history extensively during her diplomatic training. She understood their wars, their tendency toward violence, their strange honor codes. But she also knew they valued discussion. Every human conflict eventually ended in dialogue. This was different. The humans were not threatening. They were not posturing. They were advancing with the mechanical precision of species that had already made their decision. Council warships attempted to establish blockade positions, but the human fleet moved through them like they were not there. No shots fired. No aggressive maneuvers, just steady, unstoppable forward momentum. A junior aide burst through the chamber doors, mandibles clicking frantically. The translation came through broken and desperate. Human ships had entered the core systems. They were 12 hours from the Council homeworld. Morvith felt the weight of 500 generations of peaceful civilization pressing against her consciousness. Her species had built this council on the fundamental belief that all intelligent life could be reasoned with, that violence was the tool of the primitive, that evolution itself favored cooperation. Lieutenant Commander Rachel Morrison stood on the bridge of the Earth defense ship Valiant, staring at the forward screens. Behind her, Captain Lisa Chen reviewed the tactical display one final time. No communications. No warnings. The Council would understand soon enough. Humanity had tried talking once. That time was over. The Council's interceptor squadron positioned itself directly in the human fleet's path. Standard intimidation formation. 300 vessels bristling with plasma arrays and quantum disruptors. Enough firepower to sterilize a small moon. The squadron commander transmitted on every known frequency, alternating between threats and pleas. The human ships maintained course, velocity unchanged. On the Council flagship Harmony of Spheres, Wing Commander Zetas watched his tactical screen with growing dread. His species had evolved from pack hunters. He understood predator behavior in ways the diplomatic caste never could. The humans were not behaving like an aggressive force. They were behaving like something far more dangerous. They were behaving like prey that had stopped running. Captain Chen touched her earpiece, listening to the encrypted channel from Earth Command. Admiral Brennan's voice came through crisp and cold. Status updates only. The communication protocols had been stripped down to pure function. No room for doubt. No space for second thoughts. The interceptor squadron opened fire. Brilliant streams of energy lanced across the void. Council weapons designed to overwhelm shields through sustained bombardment. The first volleys struck the lead human vessel, a destroyer designated Hartford. The shields flared, absorbed the impact, and held. The Hartford did not return fire. Did not maneuver. Simply continued forward. Zetas felt his blood chill. Return fire would have been normal, expected. This silence was something else entirely. The human fleet began to accelerate. Not evasive maneuvers. Direct acceleration toward the interceptor line. Council ships scattered as the mass of human vessels plowed through their formation. Still no return fire. The Hartford shields touched the Harmony of Spheres. For 3 seconds, the two vessels moved in parallel, close enough that Zetus could see the human ship's hull plating through his viewport. Then the humans were through, past the interceptors, past the defensive line, heading deeper into Council space. Zethus received new orders. Pursue and engage. Destroy if necessary. He looked at his tactical officer, a young Meridian female named Kessa. Her face membranes had gone pale. Every simulation, every training scenario had taught them that superior numbers guaranteed victory. The math was simple. 300 against 17 meant 301. The math was lying. Back on the Council homeworld, Morvith accessed the classified archives, records that most Council members never saw. Files on species that had rejected membership. 300 years of contact had produced a simple truth. Violent species either joined the Council or were contained. Sometimes containment meant economic isolation. Sometimes it meant strategic resource denial. In rare cases, it meant military action. But containment assumed the species cared about containment. She found the file on humanity. Initial contact had been promising. Humans seemed eager for galactic citizenship. They had art, music, literature. They valued family structures and social bonds. Yes, their history showed violence, but most species had violent pasts. Evolution was often brutal. The file contained a fragment that Morvith had missed during her first review. A human philosopher named Peter Marshall had written something 300 years before first contact. When you strike at a king, you must kill him. The translation algorithms had flagged it as metaphorical wisdom literature. Morvith understood now it was tactical doctrine. The Council had struck at humanity with their demands. Reduction of colonies meant abandoning settlements. Genetic auditing meant surrendering biological autonomy. Mining restrictions meant economic starvation. The Council had designed these demands to be painful but acceptable, to remind humanity of its place in the galactic hierarchy. They had struck at humanity without killing it. The human fleet reached the Tertius sector. Council mining operations throughout the region went dark simultaneously, not destroyed. Power systems intact but deactivated. When a repair team finally reached the largest facility, they found it empty. Every piece of equipment stripped and removed. The humans had taken everything not welded to bedrock and some things that had been. Captain Chen stood in the cargo bay of the Valiant, watching as mining drones transferred processed minerals into the ship's holds. Around her, crew members worked with mechanical efficiency. No celebration. No triumph. Just work. The job demanded completion, so they completed it. Lieutenant Jake Patterson approached with a data tablet. Inventory reports from 6 facilities. Chen scanned the numbers without emotion. Sufficient resources to support human colonies for 18 months. After that, they would need to secure additional sites. The Council sent another diplomatic package. This time, the message included concessions. Perhaps the demands had been too aggressive. Perhaps adjustments could be made. Chancellor Morvith herself offered to meet with human representatives. Any location. Any terms. Admiral Brennan received the message at Fleet Command on Earth. He read it twice, then filed it in the archive without response. The Council still thought this was negotiation. They still believed humanity wanted to talk. Humanity wanted something else now. They wanted the Council to understand that some species could not be managed, could not be contained, could not be forced into compliance through diplomatic pressure. The human fleet split into 3 groups, each headed toward a different Council core system. No transmissions, no declarations, just movement with purpose. Ambassador Velrix accessed his personal medical station, injecting stabilizers to keep his carapace from fracturing further. The stress was killing him slowly. He had spent 60 years building diplomatic relationships across the galaxy. 60 years teaching species to compromise, to find middle ground, to see value in peaceful resolution. Everything he had built was collapsing, because one species refused to play by rules that had worked for centuries. The first human task force arrived at Kellier Prime, a garden world that housed the Council's largest agricultural stations. The planetary defense grid activated automatically. Missile batteries swiveled toward the incoming vessels. Energy platforms charged to full capacity. Governor Simmons, a Kellier native with crystalline skin that reflected ambient light, transmitted evacuation orders to the civilian population. The human ships assumed orbital positions without engaging the defenses. They simply waited. For 6 hours, nothing happened. Defense crews remained at battle stations watching their screens for any sign of attack. When the attack finally came, it was not what anyone expected. Human dropships launched from the fleet. Not toward military installations, toward the agricultural stations. Marines in powered armor hit the ground and moved through the facilities with practiced efficiency. No civilians were harmed. No equipment was destroyed. The humans simply walked into the control centers, accessed the systems, and began downloading data. Governor Simmons watched in disbelief as her security forces arrived too late. The humans had already extracted what they wanted: genetic sequences for the Council's most productive crops, atmospheric processing algorithms, soil composition matrices, information worth trillions in trade value, stolen in under an hour. The Marines returned to their drop ships and departed. No casualties on either side. No structural damage. Just empty databanks and the crushing realization that humanity had not come to destroy. They had come to take what the Council had refused to share. On Earth, Admiral Brennan reviewed the intelligence hall with his senior staff. Commander Michelle Brooks, head of strategic planning, highlighted the agricultural data. With this information, human colonies could triple their food production within 2 growing seasons. Independence from Council trade networks became not just possible, but inevitable. Brennan understood what the Council had never grasped. Humanity did not want to be part of the galactic community. They wanted the tools to survive without it. Every Council demand had pushed Earth further towards self-sufficiency. The diplomatic pressure that should have brought compliance had instead triggered something the Council's psychological models could not predict. Humans were exceptional at learning from enemies. The second task force reached Veneric Station, an orbital research facility studying exotic matter. Dr. Ellen Foster commanded the security response, evacuating non-essential personnel while activating the station's defensive systems. She had studied human military history as part of her xenopsychology research. She knew they favored overwhelming force followed by rapid extraction. The human corvette Defiant docked with the station's auxiliary port. No breach, no forced entry. They had override codes. Someone had sold the Council out, or the humans had cracked security protocols that were supposed to be quantum encrypted. Lieutenant Daniel Cooper led his squad through the station corridors. Their mission parameters were specific: secure the exotic matter research, avoid casualties, extract within 30 minutes. The Marines moved past terrified researchers, their armor systems painting targeting markers on every life sign but engaging none. Dr. Foster stood in the main laboratory, hands raised. She had worked on exotic matter applications for 15 years. The research could revolutionize power generation, create new propulsion systems, maybe even enable faster-than-light travel without using the Council's restricted gateway network. The humans wanted independence, and this research was the key. Cooper downloaded the data while his team established a perimeter. Foster found her voice finally. She asked why. Why not negotiate? Why not join the Council and share in the collective knowledge? Cooper looked at her through his helmet display. The translation took a moment, but his answer was simple. The Council offered membership with chains attached. Humanity preferred freedom with empty hands. The Marines departed with the data. Foster sat in her ransacked laboratory, surrounded by decades of work now copied into human databases. She accessed the Council communication network, trying to explain what had happened. But even as she spoke, she realized the truth. The Council had created this situation by treating humanity like children who needed guidance. They had offered partnership while demanding submission. Humanity had responded by taking what they needed and ignoring everything else. Chancellor Morvith convened an emergency session. Representatives from every member species crowded the chamber. The usual careful deliberations were abandoned in favor of raw panic. Proposals ranged from full military mobilization to complete capitulation. Some suggested a coordinated strike against Earth itself. Others recommended immediate concession to every human demand. Velrix listened to the chaos and felt something break inside his psyche. The Council had no demands from humanity. That was the problem. Humans had not presented terms, had not issued ultimatums. They were simply taking what they wanted and offering nothing in return. There was no negotiating position because there was no negotiation. The third task force approached the Council homeworld. Morvith watched the tactical display as human vessels moved into high orbit. This was it. The moment that would define the Council's future. If the humans attacked the homeworld, the Council would have justification for total war. Every member species would unite against the human threat. Captain Chen stood on the bridge of the Valiant, now flagship of the Third Task Force. Her orders were clear. Establish orbital superiority. Deploy reconnaissance drones. Map defensive installations. Then hold position and wait. No attack, no destruction, just presence. A reminder that humanity could reach the Council's heart anytime they chose. The Council defense fleet surrounded the human task force. 50 capital ships against 6 human vessels. The mathematics favored the Council overwhelmingly. Wing Commander Zethus commanded the response from his flagship. He had studied the previous encounters. The humans were not invincible. Their shields could be overwhelmed. Their hulls could be breached, but doing so required commitment to violence that the Council had not exercised in 3 centuries. Admiral Brennan received the updated tactical situation from Earth Command. The Council had finally concentrated enough force to potentially destroy a human task force. Game theory suggested they would not attack. Political reality suggested they might have no choice. Public pressure from Council member species demanded action. Inaction looked like weakness. Brennan considered his options. He could order Captain Chen to withdraw, preserve the ships and crew, accept a tactical retreat that would give the Council a symbolic victory. Or he could hold position and force the Council to make the choice, attack and become the aggressors. Dam down and admit their threats were empty. He ordered Chen to hold. On the Council homeworld, Morvith met with her military advisors in a sealed chamber. General Korthax, Supreme Commander of Council forces, laid out the situation with brutal clarity. They could destroy the human task force. Casualties would be acceptable. But it would mean crossing a line the Council had never crossed, initiating violence against a species that had not fired first. Morvith pointed out that humans had stolen resources, violated sovereignty, and ignored diplomatic protocols. Korthax agreed, but they had done so without killing anyone. Council military doctrine was built on proportional response. How did you proportionally respond to bloodless theft? A junior analyst named Perrick spoke up, risking censure for addressing the leadership directly. She had been studying human psychology files. There was a pattern in human military history. They excelled at forcing opponents into impossible choices. Create situations where every option was bad, then exploit whatever decision the enemy made. If the Council attacked, humanity would have justification for full retaliation. Earth's full military might would be unleashed with the moral authority of defending against aggression. If the Council stood down, humanity would continue taking what they wanted. Either way, the Council lost. Morvith felt the weight of her position crushing her. She had become Chancellor by building consensus, by finding solutions that satisfied all parties, but humanity had removed itself from the equation. They did not care about Council satisfaction. They operated on their own logic, pursuing their own goals, indifferent to galactic opinion. Captain Chen walked the corridors of the Valiant, checking on crew readiness. Her people were calm, prepared. They understood the risk. Being surrounded by superior forces would terrify most species. Humans had different responses to being cornered. Something about their evolutionary history made them dangerous when trapped. Lieutenant Patterson approached with the latest communication intercept. Council forces were arguing among themselves. Some commanders wanted to attack, others urged restraint, but the disagreement was causing delays, confusion. Chen recognized the opportunity. The longer the Council debated, the more time humanity had to extract additional resources from other systems. She returned to the bridge and opened a secure channel to the second task force. Commander Brooks was coordinating raids on 3 more Council facilities, medical research stations, industrial fabrication centers, and a library world containing thousands of years of scientific knowledge. Every minute the Council focused on the homeworld was a minute humanity spent stealing their future. Velrex accessed the historical archives again, searching for precedent. Surely some species in Council history had behaved this way. Surely someone had developed a response protocol for civilizations that refused diplomatic engagement. He found nothing useful. Every previous conflict had followed predictable patterns. Species made demands. Council responded with counteroffers. Eventually, both sides compromised. Even the most violent species had leaders who valued negotiation over endless conflict. Humanity had leaders who valued results over process. The Valiant sensors detected movement in the Council fleet. Ships repositioning, weapons charging. Zetas had made his decision. Chen watched the tactical display with clinical detachment. If the Council attacked, she had orders to defend but not pursue, make them commit fully to violence. Make them own the decision to escalate. Then something unexpected happened. A single Council vessel broke formation. A small diplomatic courier, unarmed and broadcasting peace signals. It approached the Valiant slowly, carefully. Chen checked her protocols. Nothing about this scenario. She made a command decision and opened a communications channel. The face that appeared on her screen belonged to Ambassador Velrix. He looked exhausted. His carapace showed stress fractures that would require immediate medical attention. But his eyes held clarity. He spoke directly without diplomatic flourish. He wanted to understand. Not negotiate, not bargain. Just understand what humanity wanted. because the Council was prepared to destroy the task force, and he needed to know if that would end this or make it worse. Chen considered her response carefully. She was a military officer, not a diplomat, but sometimes military officers had to be honest in ways diplomats could not. She told him the truth. Humanity wanted nothing from the Council except to be left alone. The Council had demanded submission. Humanity had responded by demonstrating they did not need Council permission to survive. Every resource stolen was a resource they would not have to trade for. Every piece of knowledge taken was independence gained. If the Council destroyed this task force, Earth would send 10 more. If those were destroyed, 100 more. Humanity would not stop until the Council accepted that some species could not be managed. Velrix absorbed this information. He asked one more question. What would it take for humanity to stop taking Council resources? Chen's answer was simple. Stop trying to control human expansion. Stop demanding genetic audits. Stop treating humanity like a problem to be solved. Recognize Earth as an independent power with sovereign rights. Then maybe, eventually, humans and Council species could build something new. But it would be built on respect, not submission. Velrix closed the channel. He had his answer. More importantly, he had context. The Council had approached humanity with the assumption that all species wanted membership, that galactic citizenship was the ultimate goal. Humanity had a different goal. They wanted autonomy. The Council had offered them a cage with golden bars. Humans preferred the wilderness. He returned to the Council chamber where Morvith and the military command were finalizing attack plans. Velrix interrupted the proceedings, which would normally result in immediate censure, but his tone carried enough urgency that even General Korthax paused. Velrix explained what he had learned. If the Council attacked, they would be starting a war that could last generations. Humanity would not surrender, would not negotiate. They would keep coming, keep taking, keep forcing the Council to choose between violence and capitulation. Every encounter would drain resources. Every battle would cost lives. And at the end, even if the Council won militarily, they would have created an enemy that would never forgive and never forget. Morvith listened carefully. She asked the obvious question. What alternative did they have? Humanity was already stealing Council resources, already violating sovereignty. Doing nothing would encourage other species to follow human example. The Council's authority would collapse. Velrix proposed something radical. Give humanity what they wanted. Formally recognize Earth as an independent power outside Council jurisdiction. Establish borders that both sides would respect. Allow humans to pursue their own development without interference. In exchange, Earth would cease operations in Council space and return to their own territory. The chamber erupted in protest. Multiple ambassadors shouted simultaneously. The suggestion was surrender. Appeasement. Everything the Council stood against. 300 years of diplomatic tradition could not be abandoned because one species refused to cooperate. General Korthax surprised everyone by supporting Velrix. From a purely military perspective, the proposal made sense. The Council could not afford a prolonged conflict with humanity. Not while maintaining stability across 47 member species. Better to contain humans diplomatically than fight them indefinitely. The debate raged for hours. Species divided along predictable lines. Those with strong military traditions favored confrontation. Those focused on trade and commerce favored accommodation. The Council, designed to build consensus, found itself paralyzed by genuine disagreement. Meanwhile, Commander Brooks completed operations at the library world. Human data specialists had copied entire archives of scientific research. Biology, physics, chemistry, engineering. Centuries of accumulated knowledge now resided in human databases. The information would accelerate Earth's technological development by decades. Admiral Brennan reviewed the intelligence reports from all 3 task forces. Every objective achieved. Every mission successful. 0 casualties. The operation had been executed perfectly. Now came the difficult part. Deciding what happened next. He could order the fleets to continue operations, push deeper into Council space, take more resources, demonstrate that humanity could operate with impunity anywhere in the galaxy. Or he could give the Council an opportunity to accept new reality. Either choice carried risks. Brennan had studied military history extensively. He knew that winning battles was easier than winning wars, and winning wars was easier than winning peace. Humanity had proven its point. They could not be controlled. The question was whether the Council could accept that truth. He drafted a message. Not a negotiation, not a proposal, a statement of facts. Human forces would withdraw from Council space within 24 hours. In exchange, the Council would formally recognize human sovereignty and establish mutual borders. No genetic audits. No expansion restrictions. No interference in human affairs. The Council would govern Council space. Humanity would govern human space. If the Council rejected these terms, human operations would resume indefinitely. Brennan transmitted the message on all Council diplomatic frequencies. Then he waited. Morvith received the message during the height of the Council debate. She read it aloud to the assembled representatives. The chamber fell silent. This was not negotiation. It was ultimatum. Accept human terms or face continued conflict. Elric spoke into the silence. He reminded the Council of their founding principles: peaceful coexistence, mutual respect, recognition of sovereign rights. The Council had built those principles into their charter. Now they had to decide if those principles applied only to member species or to all intelligent life. The vote was close. 24 species in favor of accepting human terms. 21 opposed. 2 abstained. By the thinnest of margins, the Council chose accommodation over confrontation. Morvith authorized the formal recognition of human sovereignty. Borders were established. Protocols for future contact were drafted. The Council would no longer attempt to manage human expansion. Earth would develop according to its own priorities. Captain Chen received the withdrawal orders while still in orbit around the Council homeworld. The surrounding fleet remained in position but made no aggressive moves. She initiated departure procedures, bringing the Valiant and its task force back toward human space. As the ship turned away from the Council homeworld, Lieutenant Patterson approached with a final communication. Ambassador Velrix had sent a personal message. He thanked Captain Chen for her honesty. He hoped that someday, when both sides had perspective on these events, they might build something better than conflict. Chen considered responding, but decided against it. Words had failed to resolve the situation. Actions had succeeded. If humanity and the Council were to have a future relationship, it would be built on demonstrated respect, not diplomatic pleasantries. The human fleets consolidated and began the journey home. Behind them, the Council faced the reality of a galaxy where not every species accepted their authority. Ahead of them, humanity carried stolen knowledge and hard-won independence. Admiral Brennan stood in Fleet Command watching the tactical display as his ships returned to Earth space. The operation was complete. Humanity had refused to parley, and in that refusal had forced the galaxy to recognize them as equals rather than subjects. The Council would remember this lesson. So would every other species watching from the edges of known space. Some civilizations were governed, others governed themselves. The galaxy had just learned which category included humanity.